Welcome back to the channel USA Coins 69, coin collectors, treasure hunters, and history buffs. Today, we're digging deep into one of America's most iconic and beloved coins, the Lincoln wheat penny from the year 1936. But not just any penny. We're focusing on one that hides a secret, one with a tiny mark that could change everything, a mint mark that turns an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. This isn't just a 1-cent piece. This is a story, etched in copper, about a country in recovery, a president immortalized in metal, and a minting mystery that could turn up in your pocket change or tucked away in an old drawer. And by the time we finish this journey, you'll understand why this humble penny has captured the hearts of collectors around the world. And yes, at the end of this video, we'll reveal just how much this special penny might be worth. The number might shock you. Let's begin our journey in the year 1936. America was still climbing out of the depths of the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt was president. There was no television in every home, no internet, and no smartphones, just radios humming softly in the background as families gathered to hear the latest news. It was a time of resilience and recovery. And as Americans tightened their belts and watched every cent, the U.S. Mint continued producing coins that millions would touch, but only a few would treasure. That year, the Lincoln wheat penny was struck at 3 different minting locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If you take a close look at any 1936 penny, you might see a tiny D or S just below the date. That letter tells you which mint it came from. No mint mark? That means it was made in Philadelphia. A D means it came from the Denver Mint. An S stands for San Francisco. These tiny letters can make a massive difference. The design of the Lincoln wheat penny is a classic piece of American artistry. On the front, you see the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, stoic, wise, and deeply respected. This design was created by Victor David Brenner in 1909, marking the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, breaking from the tradition of using allegorical figures like Lady Liberty. Flip the coin over, and you'll see 2 stalks of wheat curving along each side, framing the bold words, 1 cent and United States of America. The wheat symbolizes prosperity and hope for a better tomorrow, something Americans in 1936 were desperately wishing for. It's simple, elegant, and rich with meaning, but what makes the 1936 wheat penny so special? First, let's talk numbers. Millions were minted, over 300 million from Philadelphia alone. So on the surface, this doesn't sound like a rare coin. But rarity isn't always about how many were made. It's about how many survived in exceptional condition, and even more importantly, how many were struck with a mistake or a unique variation that slipped through the cracks. That's where the magic happens. You see, among the sea of 1936 pennies, there are a few that are far from ordinary. Some coins, especially those struck in Philadelphia, were part of what's now known as the 1936 double die obverse variety. These coins show signs of doubling on the date and letters, particularly, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." To the untrained eye, they might look like normal pennies. But to a collector? They're pure gold, well, metaphorically speaking. And then there are those minted in Denver and San Francisco with crisp, clean strikes and no signs of wear. Coins that were never circulated, never scratched or tarnished, perhaps tucked away by someone who knew their potential. Those are the true gems. The 1936 S and 1936 D wheat pennies in mint state condition, especially with full, red luster, are extremely desirable, but the real showstoppers are those rare coins with not just condition on their side, but also history, error, and uniqueness rolled into one. You might be wondering, why does condition matter so much? Well, picture this. 2 pennies from 1936. One is scratched, darkened with age, its details worn from decades of pocket change adventures. The other is untouched, shining as if it just left the mint yesterday. That pristine penny is like a time capsule. It tells the full story without interruption, and for collectors, that makes all the difference. Coin grading plays a huge role here. Coins are rated on a scale from 1 to 70. A grade of 65 and above is considered gem uncirculated and is highly sought after. The higher the grade, the higher the value. Combine that with a rare mint mark or a doubling error, and you've got something extraordinary on your hands. Now let's talk about the moment you've been waiting for. Somewhere out there, perhaps in a private collection, or even in a coin shop display case, is a 1936 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, preserved in stunning, uncirculated condition. This coin, thanks to its rarity, historical significance, flawless preservation, and possibly even a doubling error, was once sold at auction for an astonishing $102,000. That's right. $102,000, for a single penny. Let that sink in. A coin that once bought a piece of bubble gum or a stick of candy can now buy a luxury car, or a house in some places. And this isn't fantasy. This is the magic of coin collecting. Hidden treasures can still be found, even in something as ordinary as a 1-cent coin. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't toss it aside. Look closely. Check the date. Look for a mint mark. Examine the details. You never know what you might be holding in the palm of your hand. Today's video might completely change the way you look at coins, forever, because today, we're diving into one of America's most classic and quietly valuable coins, the 1937 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. It might not look like much on the surface, but beneath that copper tone lies a fascinating history, incredible design, and for the lucky few, a potential fortune. Let's rewind the clock to the year 1937. The United States was still feeling the effects of the Great Depression. People were working hard, stretching every dollar, and keeping a close eye on every cent, literally. Pennies mattered. They bought a loaf of bread, a few pieces of candy, maybe even a newspaper. And among those countless pennies jingling in pockets and change drawers, the United States Mint released something special, something that would go on to become a hidden treasure in the world of numismatics. That year, the Lincoln wheat penny was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Now, here's where things get exciting. If you take a look at the front of any 1937 penny, just beneath the year, you might see a tiny letter. A D means it was struck at the Denver Mint. An S points to San Francisco. No letter? That one came from Philadelphia. But don't let the small size of the mint mark fool you, it can have a big impact on the coin's value. Let's talk about the design. On the front, you'll see the profile of one of America's most admired presidents, Abraham Lincoln. This was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Sculptor Victor David Brenner created the design back in 1909 to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birthday. And what a tribute it was. Lincoln's thoughtful expression, the detailed lines of his face, and the dignity he represents, it all comes through in this coin. Even after all these years, it remains one of the most beloved designs in American coinage. Now flip the coin over. What do you see? 2 stalks of wheat, one on each side, framing the words, 1 cent and United States of America. At the top, it reads, E pluribus unum, Latin for, out of many, one. That wheat design, used from 1909 to 1958, symbolizes growth, unity, and prosperity. Simple yet powerful, but while the design remains consistent, not all 1937 wheat pennies are created equal. Some were struck with extra sharp detail. Some were minted using slightly different dies. And some were printed with small but critical errors that collectors obsess over. That's where things start to get really valuable. Minting errors are like hidden treasure maps. They're not supposed to be there, which is exactly why they're so prized. In the case of the 1937 wheat penny, some rare varieties feature doubling in the letters or numbers. Others have repunched mint marks, where the D or S was stamped more than once, just slightly off alignment. These small errors might go unnoticed by most people, but to collectors, they can mean the difference between a common coin and an extremely rare one. Condition, of course, is everything. A coin that's been in circulation, handled, scraped, and worn down by time is going to have far less value than one that's been kept in pristine condition, what collectors call mint state. A coin that's never been touched by human hands, stored properly, and preserved with all its original shine and detail intact. That's where the big bucks come in. So how rare are high-grade 1937 wheat pennies? Well, consider this: millions of these pennies were made. But only a tiny fraction survived in nearly perfect condition. And out of that fraction, only a handful come with rare features like doubling, full red coloration, or unusual minting details. These are the coins that serious collectors are willing to pay top dollar for. Imagine someone cleaning out a family attic, sorting through jars of old coins, and stumbling upon a 1937 wheat penny with a bold D mint mark, flawless surfaces, sharp detail, and not a scratch in sight. That's not just an old penny, that's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Now here's where it all comes together. In recent years, one of these rare, high-grade 1937 Lincoln wheat pennies, struck at the Denver Mint, preserved in immaculate condition, with eye-popping luster and collector demand, was sold at auction for an astonishing $100,000. Yes, you heard that right. One penny. $100,000, just think about that. Something that was once used to buy candy or pay a streetcar fare is now worth more than a brand new luxury car, a college education, or even a small house. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's why we search, why we study, and why we never overlook even the smallest coin in our pockets. So the next time you see a penny from 1937, take a closer look. Look for the mint mark. Look for signs of doubling. Check the condition. Because it's possible, just possible, that you're holding a hidden fortune in your hands. Today's video might make you look twice, because hidden among the millions of coins minted in the 1930s lies a small copper coin with a big secret. A coin that carries the legacy of a nation in transition, a coin that captures the spirit of one of America's greatest presidents, and for a lucky few, could be worth a life-changing amount of money. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of the 1939 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this coin has become a prized treasure in the world of numismatics. So don't blink, you never know if one of these is hiding in your own collection. Let's travel back to 1939, a year full of change, conflict, and anticipation. While the world stood on the brink of World War II, the United States was just beginning to emerge from the shadows of the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt was leading the country through his New Deal programs, and Americans were beginning to feel a cautious sense of hope. It was in this backdrop that the United States Mint continued to produce coins, quietly stamping history into metal. Among them was the Lincoln wheat penny, already a familiar face in Americans' pockets. But the 1939 edition, particularly those with a mint mark, would later become a standout piece for collectors around the world. First, let's look at the design that has stood the test of time. On the front of the coin, you see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator, gazing forward with a calm yet determined expression. Sculpted by Victor David Brenner, this portrait debuted in 1909 to mark Lincoln's 100th birthday, and it was the first time a real person appeared on a regular U.S. coin. This wasn't just a coin, it was a tribute. Now flip the coin over. You'll see the famous twin stalks of wheat, arching inward on both sides of the reverse. This wheat design, elegant and symbolic, represented the agricultural strength of the nation and the hope for a bountiful future. It reads, 1 cent, United States of America, and at the top, the classic phrase, e pluribus unum, Latin for, out of many, one. But while the design remained the same, not all 1939 pennies are equal. That year, the coins were minted in 3 cities: Philadelphia, which placed no mint mark, Denver, identified by a tiny D, and San Francisco, marked with an S. These mint marks are more than just letters, they are clues to where a coin came from, and they often influence how rare and valuable a penny becomes. In total, hundreds of millions of these pennies were produced. But here's the twist: most of them were heavily circulated. They passed from hand to hand, were dropped in vending machines, stuffed into change jars, and spent decades enduring scratches, wear, and oxidation. Today, finding a 1939 wheat penny is not that hard, but finding one with a mint mark, in pristine uncirculated condition, and potentially with a rare error or doubling feature? That's where things get exciting. Collectors are obsessed with condition, and there's a good reason why. A coin graded as a mint state means it's essentially untouched, just as it was the day it was minted. If it retains its original red luster, full strike, and sharp details with no signs of wear, that coin's value jumps dramatically. And then there are the rare anomalies. That's right, we're talking about error coins. These can include doubling on the date or lettering, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, or even planchet issues. While these mistakes were never meant to happen, their rarity makes them some of the most desirable coins on the market. Imagine holding a coin that was meant to look like every other 1939 penny, but due to a small, almost invisible error, it suddenly becomes a 1 in a million piece. To the casual eye, it looks the same. But to an experienced collector, it could be the find of a lifetime. So what should you be looking for? Start by checking the date, 1939. Then look just below it. If you see a small D or S mint mark, you're already onto something more special than a Philadelphia penny. Now examine the surface. Does it still shine with that original copper glow? Are the letters sharp and clear? Look closely at "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the numbers in the date. Doubling in these areas can mean a major score. Now, for the part you've all been waiting for, the reason this particular penny from 1939 is turning heads in the collector's market. There have been documented sales of 1939 Lincoln wheat pennies, particularly those with the S mint mark, in uncirculated, mint state red condition, that reached stunning heights at auction. In one such case, a nearly flawless specimen, preserved in pristine condition with strong collector demand, was sold for an unbelievable sum. That tiny 1-cent coin, minted during the uncertainty of 1939, with the San Francisco mint mark, flawless luster, and breathtaking detail, was auctioned for an astonishing $93,000. Yes, $93,000. For a penny. It's stories like these that remind us how powerful history can be, even in the smallest places. A simple coin, forgotten in a drawer or passed over in a coin jar, can turn out to be a rare artifact worth thousands. So before you drop your change in a tip jar or cash in your coin stash, take a closer look. That 1939 wheat penny with a tiny mint mark might just be the treasure you never knew you had. Today, we're diving into a small piece of American history that might be sitting unnoticed in your pocket change, tucked away in an old box, or resting quietly in a forgotten jar on a shelf. It's the humble 1941 Lincoln wheat penny, just 1 cent, but with the right combination of rarity, condition, and mint mark, it can become one of the most valuable coins a collector can find. But make no mistake, this isn't just a penny. It's a survivor of a pivotal time in American history. And in some rare cases, it could be worth a fortune. Let's rewind to 1941. The United States was on the verge of entering World War II. The world was tense. Across the oceans, conflict was escalating fast, but on American soil, life continued with a strong sense of national pride and unity. It was a year filled with uncertainty, and yet, everyday people still relied on the same small coins to buy groceries, newspapers, candy, and gasoline. And into this world, the U.S. Mint released the 1941 Lincoln wheat penny, one of the most iconic and collected coins in American numismatic history. The design, of course, was instantly recognizable. On the front, Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator. Stoic. Respected. A man whose legacy shaped a nation, captured forever in copper. Sculptor Victor David Brenner's design had already become a classic since it first appeared in 1909, and it remained untouched for decades. It wasn't just a face, it was a symbol of unity during some of the country's most challenging times. Now flip that penny over. On the reverse side, 2 elegant stalks of wheat curve inward like open arms around the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. These wheat ears weren't just decorative, they represented the heart of American agriculture, growth, and perseverance. And at the very top, E pluribus unum, the powerful motto reminding every American that out of many, we are one. But while the design may have stayed the same, there's a lot more to the 1941 penny than meets the eye, especially when it comes to the mint mark. This coin was struck at 3 different locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Philadelphia bear no mint mark. But if you find a small D or S just below the year on the coin, you've got something special. The D means it was minted in Denver. The S points to San Francisco. And those mint marks can make all the difference when it comes to value. While hundreds of millions of these coins were produced, not all survived the passage of time. Most were used in daily life, passed through thousands of hands, lost in the dirt, scratched, dented, and worn down until the fine details disappeared. But a small number managed to survive in pristine, untouched condition, coins that collectors now chase with incredible passion. And then, there are the coins that came out a little different. Some 1941 wheat pennies feature rare minting errors, doubling on the lettering, misaligned dies, off-center strikes, or repunched mint marks. These aren't factory flaws to be discarded. These are rarities that increase a coin's value dramatically. Because every error tells a story, and every story adds to the thrill of the hunt. Now let's talk about condition. In the coin collecting world, condition is everything. A 1941 penny that's been in someone's pocket for 80 years might only be worth its face value. But a coin that was never spent, never touched, and never exposed to air or moisture, those are treasures. Grading systems help collectors understand a coin's quality. On a scale from 1 to 70, only the very best coins, those with no signs of wear, full original red luster, and flawless strike, are considered mint state and can command high prices. Imagine a coin minted during a year of global tension, a coin with a rare San Francisco mint mark, gleaming in its original condition, no scratches, no stains, no fingerprints. That's not just a penny. That's a time machine. And for collectors, it's pure gold. Now you might be wondering, could a coin like that actually be worth real money? The answer is yes. In fact, one such coin, a stunning 1941 Lincoln wheat penny, struck in San Francisco, preserved in an extraordinarily high mint state, and featuring nearly perfect color and surface, was once sold at auction for a jaw-dropping total. That tiny, 1-cent coin, weighing just over 3 grams and made of humble copper, was sold for an incredible $90,000. That's right. $90,000. For a penny. It's hard to believe, but it's true. And this is exactly why the world of coin collecting remains so fascinating. Because history is often hidden in the smallest places. Because something overlooked and ordinary can turn out to be rare and extraordinary. So before you toss your change into a coin machine or let it gather dust in a drawer, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for a mint mark. Examine the detail. Who knows, you might just discover a forgotten piece of history, or even something that changes your life. Today's story is about a small copper coin with a mighty past. A coin born in the shadow of a world war, passed through the hands of millions, and now quietly waiting to be discovered, possibly by someone just like you. Today, we're focusing on a special piece of American history, the 1942 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. It's a coin that, at first glance, might look like every other old penny. But hidden within that tiny circle of copper lies a story of patriotism, precision, and potential profit. So grab your magnifying glass and settle in, because what you're about to learn might just change how you see pocket change forever. The year was 1942. America had officially entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of the previous year. The nation was rallying together, factories were converting to produce military supplies, rationing was in full swing, and Americans were collecting scrap metal for the war effort. Every citizen was doing their part, and even the smallest things, like coins, played a role in the larger story. Despite wartime pressures, the United States Mint continued striking coins to keep the economy moving. That year, the Lincoln wheat penny remained in circulation, and it carried with it not just monetary value, but symbolic strength. Let's start with the design. On the obverse side, we see the unmistakable face of President Abraham Lincoln. His thoughtful gaze, etched into copper, serves as a constant reminder of unity, strength, and freedom. Sculptor Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln had been used since 1909, and in 1942, it felt more powerful than ever. Lincoln was a symbol of hope during America's darkest hour in the Civil War, and now his image inspired a new generation facing global conflict. Turn the coin over, and you'll see the classic twin stalks of wheat on each side of the reverse. These wheat ears curve inwards like open arms, surrounding the bold words, 1 cent and United States of America. Above it, the timeless Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. That design alone speaks volumes. In 1942, unity wasn't just a phrase, it was the backbone of the nation. Now here's where things get interesting. Not all 1942 pennies are the same. They were minted in 3 different locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, with a small d; and San Francisco, marked with an S. That tiny letter under the date on the coin may seem insignificant, but for collectors, it can make a world of difference. Most 1942 wheat pennies were heavily circulated. They were used to buy stamps, newspapers, food, and gasoline. Many have been scratched, worn down, or damaged over the years. But once in a while, a few survive in breathtaking condition, coins that were never spent, never touched, and kept in nearly flawless shape. And those coins? They're the ones that turn a simple penny into a prized possession. Collectors use a grading system to assess coin condition, ranging from poor to perfect mint state. A 1942 penny in lower grades might only be worth a few cents or a couple of dollars. But when you find one with that deep, original red luster, shiny, clean, and perfectly struck, it becomes something truly valuable. And then there are the rare ones. Some 1942 Lincoln pennies feature unusual errors, doubling on the date or lettering, off-center strikes, or repunched mint marks. These mistakes occurred during the minting process, and only a few made it out into circulation. That makes them incredibly rare and highly desirable to collectors. If you spot one, you've got something special, but rarity isn't the only thing that makes a coin valuable. It's the combination of rarity, condition, and demand that truly sets a coin apart. For example, a 1942 penny from San Francisco with a sharp S mint mark, clear doubling in the lettering, and flawless copper coloring can skyrocket in value. Imagine holding a coin that's been sitting in a drawer, in a jar, or even in a shoebox for decades. You take a closer look. It's from 1942. There's a mint mark. It shines. The details are crisp. The strike is strong. That's no longer just a penny. That's a piece of World War II history, and maybe much more. Now, let's get to the part you've been waiting for. There was one particular 1942 Lincoln wheat penny, struck in near-perfect condition, featuring a rare mint mark and preserved with its original luster, never spent, never touched. That coin, authenticated and graded at the highest levels, stunned collectors when it was sold at auction. The final price for that single copper penny? An unbelievable $87,000, yes. $87,000. For a 1-cent coin, and that's the magic of numismatics. Something so small, so seemingly ordinary, can hold such incredible worth, both historically and financially. All it takes is knowledge, patience, and a sharp eye. That's why collectors are always searching, always studying, always hoping to find the next great discovery hiding in plain sight. So if you've got a stash of old pennies lying around, it might be time to go digging. Look for the date. Check for that mint mark. Study the details. You never know what treasure might be waiting. Today, we're cracking open a piece of American history that might be sitting quietly in your collection right now, a coin so common, yet so mysterious, it's often hiding in plain sight. We're talking about the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. It's a coin you might have seen dozens of times. But what if we told you, one version of this seemingly ordinary penny is so rare and valuable, it could change your life? Stay tuned, because you won't want to miss a single detail. Let's set the scene. The year is 1944. World War II is raging on. American soldiers are overseas fighting for freedom, while those at home are working in factories, rationing goods, and doing everything they can to support the war effort. The economy is booming with war production, and the U.S. Mint is under pressure to continue supplying coins for everyday transactions across the country. During this time, copper became a hot commodity. In 1943, the U.S. government actually switched from copper to steel for pennies to save metal for ammunition and military equipment. But by 1944, they reversed the change and went back to copper, using leftover shell casings from the war to produce coins. That's right, your 1944 penny may have literally been made from recycled wartime ammunition. How cool is that? Now let's look at what makes this coin stand out. On the front, you'll see the familiar face of President Abraham Lincoln. His image is so iconic it's easy to overlook. But back in 1909, when sculptor Victor David Brenner first created this design, it was groundbreaking. Lincoln became the first real person featured on a U.S. coin, and ever since, his profile has been a proud symbol of freedom and unity. Flip the coin over and you'll find two stalks of wheat arching toward the center, simple, elegant, and symbolic. The reverse reads, 1 cent, United States of America, and above it, the famous Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, which means, out of many, one. In 1944, those words held more weight than ever, but beyond its historical significance, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny becomes even more fascinating when we look closer, specifically at the mint marks. You see, these coins were minted in 3 different locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If you find a 1944 penny with no letter under the date, it was made in Philadelphia. A small d means it came from Denver. And an S stands for San Francisco. These mint marks may be tiny, but for coin collectors, they make a huge difference. Some mint-marked coins were produced in lower quantities. Others may contain minting errors, tiny imperfections that occurred during the production process. These include things like double die strikes, off-center impressions, or repunched mint marks. And while these errors weren't intentional, they've become incredibly valuable due to their rarity, but that's just part of the story. The real prize lies in the coin's condition. Most 1944 pennies were used, and used a lot. They passed through grocery stores, bus fares, candy shops, war bond booths, and thousands of hands. As a result, most of them are worn, scratched, and far from perfect, but a small number of these coins, especially those with mint marks, were never circulated. They were tucked away in collections, preserved in rolls, or simply forgotten in drawers. These pristine examples are what collectors call mint state pennies, and they're the ones that grab the headlines at coin auctions. What exactly makes a 1944 wheat penny with a mint mark valuable? It's the perfect storm of 3 things: rarity, condition, and collector demand. If the coin has a rare minting error or was produced in limited numbers with a specific mint mark, like from San Francisco or Denver, it already holds value. If it's in near-perfect condition, with sharp details and brilliant copper luster, it becomes even more desirable, and if you happen to have one that checks all those boxes, flawless surface, deep red tone, strong strike, and a rare variant from a specific mint, you could be holding a true treasure. There have been verified cases of collectors finding such coins in old change jars, estate sales, and even inside family albums. It just goes to show that you never know where a rare piece of history might be hiding. So now, the big question. Could a coin from 1944, something that once bought a stick of gum or a glass of soda, actually be worth serious money today? The answer is a resounding yes. In one extraordinary case, a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, preserved in spectacular condition, and authenticated by grading experts, stunned the coin collecting world when it was auctioned off. That single copper coin, weighing just a few grams, sold for an incredible $84,000. Yes, you heard that right. $84,000. For 1 penny. That's the magic of numismatics. That's the thrill of coin collecting. Because sometimes, history hides in plain sight. And if you look closely enough, you might just uncover a story, and a fortune, hidden inside the smallest coin. So, check your collection. Pull out those old coin jars. Look at the date. Spot the mint mark. Examine the shine. Because the next great discovery could be sitting in your hands right now. Today, we're about to explore a penny that might seem like just another old coin, but don't be fooled. What looks like pocket change to most could actually be a piece of wartime history worth far more than you ever imagined. That's right. We're talking about the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. It's small. It's common. And yet, under the right conditions, it could be hiding an unbelievable secret. If you have one of these in your coin jar or old collection, this video might be the most valuable few minutes you've spent all year. Let's go back in time, 1945. America was deep in the heart of World War II, but the tides were turning. Victory in Europe was declared in May, and Japan surrendered in August. The world was forever changed. The war was over, soldiers were coming home, and a new chapter in American life was beginning. In the middle of all this, the U.S. Mint was still working hard, striking coins to keep the American economy running. Pennies were one of the most widely used denominations, vital for buying everyday essentials like bread, milk, and newspapers. But the 1945 wheat penny was more than just a coin. It was a symbol of national resilience. It was the coin of the people during one of the most transformative times in history. Now, let's talk about the coin itself. On the front, or obverse, you'll see the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln. He's been there since 1909, ever since the coin was redesigned to honor his 100th birthday. This isn't just a portrait, it's a powerful reminder of leadership, unity, and the enduring American spirit. During the wartime years, Lincoln's image took on new meaning. His legacy inspired strength and courage, just as Americans faced challenges both at home and abroad. Turn the coin over, and you're greeted by the iconic wheat ears design on the reverse. Two stalks of wheat curve gracefully along the sides, encircling the words, 1 cent and United States of America. At the top is the motto, E pluribus unum, which means, out of many, one. And in 1945, no words could have summed up the spirit of the country better. But here's where it gets interesting. The 1945 wheat penny wasn't just minted in one place, it was struck at 3 different U.S. mint facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins don't carry a mint mark, but the Denver coins have a small D under the date, and the San Francisco coins carry an S. These tiny letters might seem insignificant, but to coin collectors, they mean everything. The mint mark affects the coin's rarity, value, and desirability, and it gets even better. While the U.S. Mint produced over 1 billion Lincoln cents in 1945, most of them went straight into circulation. They were passed from person to person, used in everyday purchases, dropped in vending machines, saved in piggy banks, and with every passing year, they picked up scratches, dings, and wear. Finding one today that's in worn condition isn't a big deal, but finding a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, in near-perfect condition? That's another story entirely. Condition is everything in coin collecting. The best coins are known as mint state or uncirculated. These are coins that were never used. They were carefully stored, handled only with gloves, and preserved in a way that kept their original color, detail, and shine. Now imagine this: a 1945 penny struck in Denver or San Francisco, showing off a sharp mint mark, crisp lines in Lincoln's hair, flawless lettering, and that deep copper-red glow that shines like the day it left the mint. That's the kind of coin collectors dream of. That's the kind of coin that makes headlines at auctions. But there's one more thing that pushes a coin from valuable to extremely rare: mint errors. That's right. Every once in a while, the mint makes a mistake. It could be doubling in the date or lettering. It could be a repunched mint mark. Maybe it's an off-center strike or even a coin made with the wrong metal planchet. These kinds of errors are rare, and when they happen on a coin as historic as a 1945 wheat penny, they're worth serious money. So, what should you look for? Start by checking the date, 1945. Then look for a mint mark just below it. If you see a D or an S, you've got a mint-marked version. Then examine the coin's color. A bright red-orange hue means it likely hasn't been circulated. Check the details in Lincoln's face, the wheat stalks, and the lettering. The sharper and cleaner, the better. And if you notice anything strange, like doubled numbers or off-center printing, you might have something truly special, but even without an error, a 1945 wheat penny with a mint mark in pristine condition is a prize all on its own. Here's the part you've been waiting for. There was one remarkable example of a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, preserved in stunning condition. Brilliant, uncirculated, with a flawless strike and full luster. It was authenticated, graded at a near-perfect level, and put up for auction in front of eager collectors. When the final bid came in, the hammer dropped at a stunning total. That single penny, just 1 cent of copper, stamped in the shadow of World War II, sold for an incredible $80,000. Yes, $80,000. For one penny. It's stories like this that keep collectors searching, hunting, and dreaming. Because these coins are more than metal, they're time capsules, carrying history, craftsmanship, and hidden value. And if you're lucky, you might just be holding one in your own hand. So don't dismiss that old coin jar just yet. Take a closer look. Pull out those wheat pennies. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. Study the shine. Because sometimes, the treasure isn't buried, it's been in your house the whole time. Thanks for joining us today on another amazing journey through coin history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss out on the next coin that could change your life. Until next time, keep searching, stay curious, and remember, every coin tells a story. And some of them are worth far more than just 1 cent.